Yeah, first 51% for a webinar, which I'm very excited about. Today we've got an absolutely brilliant session as well. Jake from Mercia Ventures is going to basically teach us all how to get tons of money, which we love to see. Um, no pressure, Jake, no pressure. No, today's all about kind of crafting your pitch deck and really understanding, what needs to be in it. How do you make it super, super attractive to investors? So it's a really fantastic session today. Jake's going to lead it. He's super chill, so feel free to pop up asking questions either as we go along in the chat box, or at the end there'll be question and answer session as well. You are also welcome to have cameras on, off, whatever you feel comfortable with. So I'm pretty much going to be here in the background. I'm going to hand over to you, Jake, and I'll keep letting people on as they come. But enjoy it, everybody. Any issues, questions, give me a shout. I very much enjoy. Over to you, Jake.
Great, thank you very much, Tara. Hello, everyone. Welcome. This, as Tara said, very much a relaxed session. Don't expect it to take the whole hour. It's probably a good thing. I'm still in the midst of a cold, trying to get rid of it, so my voice might be slightly annoying. I might be coughing and sniffing, so apologies for that. But yeah, relaxed session. Happy to take questions as we go at the end, however you prefer it. But yeah, kind of just to cover over how to craft a pitch deck really and what we're looking for as investors, what we're looking to see. So a little bit of background here. So I've been at Mercia for just over 2.5 years now. I was originally starting out in an operational role, sort of doing the reporting, all the internal docs for investments that we were making and kind of the nitty-gritty of the companies, and then joined the investment team last April when we launched a few new funds. So I've been doing this role specifically for about a year now. So yeah, it's a little bit about me. So what we're going to cover. So initially, just an introduction to Mercia, who we are, then what every great pitch deck has. So a few different points that we like to see in every pitch deck, kind of some faux pas, uh, fundraising process, and at the end, Q&A. Like I said, happy to take questions at the start or at the end, whichever you would prefer. So Mercia Ventures, we are one of the most active VCs in the UK. We've got offices all over the country, so from Newcastle down to London. HQ is in a place called Henley in Arden, and I'm based in our Birmingham office. With check sizes from 500,000 all the way up to 10 million. So it's quite a broad range. And typically we invest at that seed to Series A level. And there's a few kind of different sources here, Sifted, Pitcher, Boas. You might have heard of a few of them. Kind of just to show we are very active in the market. We're out and about. And most of our investments come outside of what's called the Golden Triangle of the London, Cambridge, Oxford region. Most of our investments come from outside of that. We kind of started out in the Midlands and expanded from there. I'd say about 80% of our investments are still um, outside of that Golden Triangle. So as a house, we are sector agnostic, generalist as a house. So um, sorry, I just saw the chat come up, so I thought that might have been a question already. Yeah, sector agnostic, generalist as a house. So we kind of take a look at every opportunity that comes our way. But we tend to bucket our deals into four key sectors, those being consumer, software, health tech slash life sciences, and deep tech. And within these, it can be such a range of different companies. So software could be anything from AI, cybersecurity, all the way to edtech. And consumer could be anything from gaming all the way to kind of protein bars, something like that. So there is a big range of companies that we do invest in. And just because your company might not be in one of these four categories, don't count yourself out for investment. We're still open to looking at all different opportunities. So, into the pitch decks, I guess what you guys came here for. So, what are we looking for in a pitch deck? So, you want it to be so good that investors can't stop thinking about you. So, kind of, can you weave in a story? something a bit personal to you to make us really remember it because they're the deals that we're going to invest in, ones that we connect with, and ones that we find interesting. So it's got to be memorable. Keep it short. Again, that kind of links in with the memorable piece. So we in a pitch deck we don't ideally for us it shouldn't be any longer than 12 slides. That's the real maximum that we would want to see because we see an awful lot of pitch decks and there's a lot of different pitch decks to get through. So 12 slides maximum. Because at the end of the day as well, we're going to read the pitch deck, have a chat with you, and we're going to go back to the team to kind of tell them about the opportunity. So if it's something short and sweet that we can remember and kind of add the details to, then that's a lot easier to take back to the team and a lot easier for them to kind of uh, almost agree with it and buy into. Decks need to be visually appealing. So for this one, I would say it's not the most important thing, but it shows you put some time and effort into the pitch deck because this is the first thing that any investor is going to ask for. So you want the pitch deck to look appealing, something they're going to want to read. Like I said, we see an awful lot of pitch decks, so do make it somewhat um, interesting to look at as well. So in the pitch deck, we want to see a slide on the problem statement. So kind of some questions in bullet points here of what will be thinking about and what hopefully you'll be thinking about when you're creating your pitch deck. So can I imagine the problem? A good picture there, kind of seeing whether astigmatism and normal people with kind of the normal eyesight don't see the astigmatism. So you've got to kind of help them imagine it to understand the problem. And then moving on to how big is the problem, linking into the next bullet point, can you quantify it for us? Could you say this costs people this amount of money, it takes up this amount of time, this many people are affected? Just try and quantify it. We investors like to be able to put a number to things. And that then helps us to get a sense of how painful the problem is. And then who's affected by the problem? That's linking into who your customers will be. So say you've got a product that's specifically for gym goers, then you can say my target market is people that go to the gym. That's quite a simple example, but it kind of makes it understandable. And then finally, is it a vitamin or a painkiller? And by this, what we mean, this links into the solution as well, which will be coming up on the next slide. So ideally, you want it to be a painkiller. Well, first off, is the problem a vitamin or a painkiller in that sense? So is it kind of just it's a bit annoying, or is it a deep issue that people need solved, and something they're really going to buy? And then linking that into the solution statement. Is what you've created a vitamin or a painkiller? In that sense, same again. Does it kind of just help the problem a little bit, or does it completely solve it? You want to be aiming for the painkiller where you completely solve it, and state that as well within your pitch deck. Make it so obvious for the investor. Don't leave anything for interpretation. Make everything super obvious. Because like I said, we see a lot of pitch decks, and it can be easy to miss things. So then, does the solution actually solve the problem? That's something we're looking for. It seems common sense, but sometimes this can be missed. It's quite simple, just very simply, just take a step back, have a think about your solution, and is it really solving the problem at hand? And then also tell us why you think it's the best solution, because this is a question we're going to be asking ourselves. Is this the best solution for this problem? Because a lot of the time we'll see several different solutions for the same problem, and then we have to choose and decide, do some research as which is the best. And if you've given us lots of reasons why yours is the best, then it makes our decision a lot easier to pick you as the company to invest in. Next, do I get a clear understanding of all its features? So this links back to the point of just making it super simple for an investor to understand. As I mentioned at the start, we are generalists as a house, so we're not necessarily experts in everything. Whilst we do have specialist teams in certain sectors that I mentioned at the start, we're not experts in absolutely everything. So there's a lot of research that we have to do. So we need to know pretty quickly if it is something technical, understand very clearly how it works, all the different nuances, all the different features to it. So again, when we bring it back to the team and our investment committee to explain, we can kind of explain it to them in a very simple way that they can understand and buy into. And then can I reverse engineer it in 5 minutes? So this is kind of two parts. So firstly, do we understand it again? Make it super, super clear, almost like you're explaining it to a child. And then linking to the bottom point, how will the founder build defensibility over time? So is it something that's kind of is it something that you can build a defensive moat around? And ways to typically do this are by, if say you're a consumer brand, you're building a really strong social media presence, a really strong brand that people buy into. Or typically, a lot of the time, say it's a deep tech company, it could be patents or IP that you can get to then protect your product. So then the next slide we typically want to see is kind of the market sizing and dynamics. So the first point to mention here, bigger isn't always better. So we want you to kind of apply some common sense to it as well, because we're going to be doing some application of common sense as well. If you tell us your market's 500 billion and you've got a really niche product, we're going to know straight away that you haven't done your research, and that's going to kind of ruin your credibility a bit. So make sure you've done your research, and in that sense, it means that you understand who your ICP is. ICP is ideal customer profile. So kind of as I mentioned before, that product for the gym goers, you know that your ideal customer profile are the people going to the gym. So it just shows us you've done your research, you know a lot about your market, and again helps us to buy into the whole solution. Next, show your plan for world domination. So often what we like to see is companies focusing, say they're based in the UK, as typically we only invest in companies that do have a base in the UK. They focus on UK market first. Once they've not necessarily conquered, but they've taken a large part of that market, they can then look to expand into different geographies. So they could be going to the US, they could be taking Europe, Australia, whatever it is. Um, and then also markets as well. So your product could be applicable across several different markets. So again, it could be similar to the health and wellness products, could be applicable to gym goers, could be applicable to runners, different markets across the fitness industry. And give us an idea of the plan there. So we want to see your initial plan, so you're focused on what is here and now, but also in the future, what are you going to be stepping into? It gives us an idea that you've thought ahead as well. So next, bottom-up calculations as opposed to top-down. So what we mean by this, there's different ways to calculate your market size. So you could do the top-down, whereas you could do a bit of research on Google, find an industry report to say how big is the market for whatever your sector is, and then you can then apply again some common sense to say this is probably applicable to 50% of the people in this market. So we're going to say our total market is 1 million. Hopefully it's a bit bigger than that, but this is just a small example. 50% of the market is not applicable because of XYZ. So then 500 million is our total market size that we can really service. And now that's the top-down approach. Preferably, we would like the bottom-down approach. It is a bit more time-consuming, but gives slightly more accurate valuations to the market. So this is say again, we're taking the gym goer approach. You could say there's this many gyms within the UK. On average, this many people go to the gym. You multiply those two numbers, and then you can times that by the price of your product to get the size of the market. So again, it's not a massive issue if you choose top down because it is a lot quicker. But it's just a preference for some investors. For me, I think you're going to the numbers aren't going to be super spot on if you do top down, but as long as you can show that the market is big enough to give sizable returns for an investor, that's what's going to pique their interest. It's not going to be, oh, you were a few million off your market size when we did the research. That's not going to be the end of the world. You just need to show that the market is big enough to give sizable returns. Sizable returns, ideally, an investor wants to return their fund And for context, the fund that I work on is an 83 million pound fund. We know that's not going to happen every time. But if you can 10x, 5x, 2x their money, they're going to be happy. Um, is the market growing or decreasing and why? So again, it's just that market research showing us that you really know what you're talking about. You've done your research. So for example, decreasing could be the radio market. We know television's getting bigger. People are using different forms of I guess entertainment and not using the radio as much. That's probably a shrinking market. Or you could, that ideally, that's not the route you want to take. Investors are going to be looking for markets that are growing. So, for example, an obvious one at the moment is AI. Such a buzzword. Everyone seems to be using it. Whether everyone really does use AI or not, who knows? They could just be using it to get investors interested. But that is a growing market and one that investors are interested in. And I think that's pretty self-explanatory as to why it's increasing. But it's good, again, just to do some research, say it's growing by this percentage year on year, just to show again you've done your research. So next, the team. So this is probably the most important bit for investors. We're looking at the team and we probably over-index on the team, as I think most investors do. So do you have the Rockstars team who have a complementary skill set? So we understand at the early stage, you could even be a solo founder and you're wearing many hats, but what does your experience look like? Have you been a founder before? Who are the sort of people you're engaging with? Um, You don't need to have been a founder before. It's not a prerequisite, not something you have to have, but it's kind of a good indicator for us that you've got some battle scars, you know what you're doing. And if you haven't, absolutely fine. We've invested in plenty of first-time founders as well. Have you managed to sell the vision? So I guess on that point, it's are you starting to see some traction? Are other people buying into it as well? Um, I guess as well in a more simple context, can you sell it to an investor? Because they're the ones that are going to be investing in your company. Again, just making it super simple. And it then builds onto your sales skills as well. That's something that's quite important when you're a founder because you've got to sell the product to make money. And if you don't have that, are you looking at other people that could possibly bring that to the team? Or is there someone else in the team, a co-founder, that could potentially be doing it? Unique insights. So, what unique insights do they have? So, again, that links back into the experience that you have within the industry. Like I said, we're generalists. A lot of investors are generalists unless you go to specialist investors. Give us some insights into the industry. Tell us some things that we probably wouldn't know. Obviously, that are relevant, but just again, it shows us, kind of builds on your credibility as well. It shows us a bit of that experience that you have. A clear delegation of responsibilities and are there any skill sets missing? So this is something where founders need to be quite self-aware on the second part. So obviously if there's a few of you within the business, have you split up your positions clearly, CEO, CFO, whatever that may be. Make sure that's clear in the deck and make sure you know exactly what it is that what your role is within the business. And then at the early stages of companies as well, there are going to be missing parts. So what often a good thing to say within your pitch deck is we want to hire this position, whatever position it is, just so we can see that you're self-aware of what's missing within the business and where you can add. A simple example could be you don't have a financial director, and that's something you want to hire because your skill set does not lean into being very good at Excel or financials in that sense. So that's something you need to hire. Then experience is better than brands. So again, brands are going to catch the eye of investors, but it's that experience that you bring to the table that's so important. What is it that you've actually done? Not just worked at those companies, but what is it that you've done that's going to be beneficial to this company? Advisory board. So again, this is something that might come down the line, but have you built connections? I guess within the 51% club, if you're a part of it, there's going to be connections within there of people that have more experience than you, who's advising you within the business. That make sure you tell them first or ask them first if they're willing to be on your advisory board. Don't just slap them in your deck because that will be a bit troubling for them if they suddenly see their face in there and they weren't aware of it. But it's good to see that you're seeking advice from the right sort of people within the ecosystem, and you can build from that as well. So your advisory board can grow, and it's good just for investors to understand that and understand to what capacity they're involved as well. And then is the team too big and correctly resourced? So again, just links into that clear delegation piece. Make sure you know what you're doing. Don't hire too many people too soon. Try and keep it lean because obviously it's expensive to run a business. You want to keep the costs down. And if you're hiring too many people down the line, it's going to be a bit of an awkward conversation when you have to let them go. So make sure when you're making a hire, you know that they're definitely the right fit and there is a missing skill set there. Next, go-to-market strategy. So, is the strategy sensible for the industry? So, and again, example, consumer brands, you want to build a strong social media presence in a consumer brand. That seems to be super important. And that would make sense for a consumer brand, building that social media presence before you then go to the retailers to try and sell your stock through them, like Tesco, Asda, whoever it is. Um, if you haven't built a social media presence, you've just started out and you're going straight to Tesco saying, right, I've got 1,000 of my products. I want you to sell them. It doesn't really make sense. It's not a good use of your time because you have no credibility there. You haven't sold any products. You're just starting out. You've got to pick what's the smartest use of your time, depending on where the business is. So then CAC to LTV, the bullet point below. So this means that the cost of acquisition per customer and the lifetime value of that customer. So this is a kind of a performance indicator that investors will look for. And if you can put it in your deck already, then it kind of gives them a good idea of where you are. So for example, say it costs you £1 to acquire a customer through some marketing spend that you've done. So you've done an ad on Facebook or whatever it is, and then that customer buys the product and they spend £2. Your LTV to CAC ratio would be 2 to 1 because you spent £1 on the marketing and they've paid £2 for your service. That's a good indicator that you're kind of heading in the right direction and it doesn't cost more to acquire those customers than they are paying for your products. So just something to bear in mind, not something that you definitely should have in your deck, but something to bear in mind that investors will ask for down the line. Do you know how your customer makes purchasing decisions? So again, how have you done your research into the market? Have you gone out and spoken to people who would be buying your products? So again, I keep coming back to the same example of the gym, but have you been into the gym, spoken to the gym goers and asked them, what is it you look for in a protein bar? Probably they're going to be looking at protein, calories, taste, that sort of thing. So kind of, are you understanding what it is that makes them buy the products within that market already, what's missing within the market, just those sort of questions to show that you really understand it. So then when you do launch the product, you can say, I've done this research and this is kind of what has led me to the product. So you're really solving kind of the missing link or the problem within the market as opposed to just creating a solution for a problem that doesn't exist. Have you got your process to scale it, or is it in your head? So this is something that I guess a lot of early stage businesses will be, or I guess if you're a solo founder or co-founder, you kind of just keep things in your head and make sure you're writing stuff down, noting down processes, because as more people join the business, um, instead of just necessarily telling them and trying to get them to remember the processes, they can then look at what's written down in the process and kind of copy it step by step. Makes it a lot easier. And kind of shows us you've got the business a bit more in order. And then finally, are you running too many sales processes? So again, it's just all about finding that balance of the use of your time. Excuse me. So you do want to obviously be running sales processes, but you've also got to build the product. So it's finding that balance. and I'm finding the best route to market of how you sell that, whether that could, like I said, be marketing online, building a brand, whatever that is, whatever the best way it is that you can sell your product. Have a think about what that is. And if you need to trial a few different methods out before you kind of come to investor to say this is pinpoint what my strategy will be, that's fine. You've got to figure that out. But whether, depending on what the product is, it will vary. It could be getting pilots, making connections at events, then getting pilots within companies for your cybersecurity product, whatever it is. Or it could be, like I say, building a brand and doing marketing online. It varies. Next, competition. So this slide is kind of useful again for us to show that you know your market, but also you're doing a bit of almost legwork for the investor as well to speed up the whole process of the investment, which again is nice for the investor, but again it does show that you know your market. So you know what competition is out there, who's out there, and who it is that you need to be beating. So for example, they again going back to the protein bar, but Grenade seems to be the obvious large protein bar brand. You can say they're out there. This is why they're good. This is why they're bad. This is why we're better. And that's basically what the competition slide is. It's kind of putting yourself against the key competitors in the market and saying why you're better. Uh, does the founder understand what's important for customers? So again, doing that market research, if you say we're better for this reason, because the packaging of the protein bar looks nice, is that really important to the customers? If it is, great, you can put a tick, you've got nice packaging. If it's not, then not really relevant to put in the decks. You want to make sure the reasons why you're better is relevant for your customers. And then again, you don't have to be the best because a lot of the time we'll see in markets, a lot of customers do exactly the same thing. Um, but they're all the same. If you're unique and you're different, people will buy into that more because you're giving that something different within the market. So tell us why you're different. So product and commercial roadmap. So this slide is just kind of to say be optimistic in terms of your timelines, in terms of your market size. I guess it links to everything. Be optimistic, but also be realistic at the same time. Again, we're applying investors will apply common sense to everything you put. And if you put something a little bit out there, that's okay if you kind of say, for example, in your financials, if you say your revenue is going to grow from X to X, you could say this is a conservative view, this is a realistic view, this is a um, kind of a super fantastic view of what may happen, but just be realistic in everything that you do. So for a product roadmap, say your your product is at a technology readiness level of 4, and you say within 6 months we're going to get to a 9, which is a 5-point jump, which is quite big. Um, Tell us how you're going to get there. But a lot of the time, if we see that you're going to do that massive jump in 6 months, we know you're probably telling a little bit of a lie there. It's probably not true. And we're going to question that. And again, it comes into your credibility. So just try and be realistic wherever you can. Um, Almost assume that things are going to be slightly tougher and take slightly longer than they will. Because a lot of the time we see things kind of shifting to the right, and that does happen. So things that you kind of need to be realistic about, sales cycles. A lot of the time we see that companies think their sales cycles are going to be super quick and a lot shorter than industry standard. This isn't often the case, especially for a startup. Securing talent quickly. So like I said, say you need a new CFO, it's difficult to get the sort of talent that you need in the market. It's not going to come super quickly. There's negotiations. So again, just be realistic about how these things are going to happen. And then product development, as I mentioned, you're not going to jump from TRL 4 to 9 within 6 months. Just be realistic with us on where you're going to get to within a certain amount of time. And then can you hit your next round metrics? So this is the easiest example for this, I guess, is say you want to raise £1 million. and you say you're going to get your revenue from 100K to 200K within a year, have a think about how realistic is that? What do you need to spend that money on to get to that next step from that 100K revenue to that 200K revenue? Um, and, and again, just be super realistic with it. How will these new hires that you're going to make get you to the 100K to 200K? It might be that you're hiring a new salesperson, whatever it is. It's again just kind of make sure you've got the product roadmap mapped out of when you're going to go from pre-launch to launch to the next steps of the iterations for the product and when you think you're going to get the commercial roadmap. So I guess commercialization of when you're starting to sell it, and then X amount of revenue, whatever that metric is. Just try and make sure you're being super realistic. Because if you say you're going to reach that 200K and you know deep down you're not, if it comes to a year's time and you're still at 100K, investors are going to be thinking, something's gone wrong here. Should we invest at the next round? So make sure you're realistic so investors know what they're getting into. Building too much and selling too little. So this again is just finding that balance, as I mentioned. Balance is so important. You've obviously got to build the product, but you also need to sell it at the same time, which again, if you're a solo founder, is super hard. I appreciate that. And again, it's just finding that balance of your time of actually going out there, meeting people and selling it, as opposed to just kind of building the product. So again, just find that balance. And then have a think about what happens if you don't hit those targets. So again, will investors come back in at the next round? I guess that's sort of due diligence for you to do and how patient the investor is. If you've missed, I don't know, if you just come shy by 3% of your target, probably not going to be a massive issue. But just have a think of, do you have backups in place, kind of cash reserves? What will happen, just so you know, or the investor knows that you've planned ahead and you've really thought this through. So then the ask. So this is pretty much as it says. What are you asking for? How much are you asking for? How much runway will that give you? What is it that you need the funds for? Because if you say we want 1 million just to say we've raised money, you're not going to raise. You've got to make sure you've got exactly what it is you need the money for, and you've priced out exactly how much that's going to cost so the investor can see. So again, is the ask reasonable? If you're pre-revenue, you're just at the idea stage, and you say you want to raise 10 million pounds, probably not reasonable. What do you need 10 million pounds for? You haven't quite got to creating the product yet. There's still a lot to do, a lot of thinking to do. So again, just make sure that the ask is reasonable, understand how much you really need to raise, where the key missing links are within the team, how much it's going to cost to get the product to kind of commercial readiness, all those things you want to think about, how much cash you're burning month on month. Again, then you can kind of see how long that cash is going to last you until then you need to raise again. So it's just those things that you kind of need to think about. And again, will it help you get to where you want to go? So do you really need the cash? Raising cash is not for everyone as well. Really think about, do you need the cash? Do you want to give away some of your business? Um, are you happy with having someone come in and sit on your board, being at your monthly, quarterly, whatever it is, meetings as well, and kind of having a say in the business? It's all something to think about. I know as an investor, Mercer, we're quite hands-on in the sense we want to be at those meetings and mainly just to be eyes and ears to understand what's going on, help out wherever possible. And you guys are running the business. We're not going to tell you how to run the business. But again, make sure you do your due diligence on investors because some investors might be a bit more pushy than this. Have you got any funds committed as well? So this is something that investors will ask because often to de-risk the investment, investors like to have other investors around the table to almost well, to form a syndicate. Um, this is good because then follow on money as well. For you yourself as the founder, you've got other investors or a few different investors around the table that could potentially invest at the next round. And those investors going to have connections as well, and they can bring in other investors at the next round. Um, also. So investors will ask, say you are raising 1 million, how much of that round is committed already? If you've got 500k committed, you can let them know to say 500k of the round is still open. Happy for you to come alongside, and often investors will have a chat with each other to again further de-risk, and it just kind of builds a nice syndicate for us, and I guess for you as well, to show that there's different players around the table that can put money in. When do you need to close it out by? So this is to do with the round. So when is it that you need the round to close by? When do you need the money? When are you going to run out of cash so the business can't run anymore? Ideally, you want to start your fundraising process far before then because it takes a while to raise money. But just let the investor know this is when I want to close the raise by. Does that work to your timescales? And the investor can talk you through their timescales. So for us, I know it takes us roughly 3 months from first call all the way to investment. There's various different things that go on between that, but there's basically a lot of due diligence, a lot of questions, writing papers, that sort of thing. So ask them their process, understand how long it takes them to get to the investment as well, to see if that works with your timescale. And if it doesn't, and you've got other investors there, probably go with them. Does this feel reasonable? I guess that's just an all-round thing as well. Ask yourself, are you happy with the investors? Like I said, are you happy with the amount you're raising, the valuation that you're coming in at as well? Do these things feel sensible to you? And if you're unsure, I'm sure you guys have got great connections through the 51% Club. I know Tara knows loads about this as well. Ask her the question as well. And then can I get an uplift in the next round? So this is to do with the valuation. So investors like to see companies that once they've raised once, at the next round, they can get a higher valuation because the company's grown, their metrics have gone up, higher revenue, and that leads to higher valuation. So that's what we like to see. Um, so I guess ask yourself, if you raise now, in 1 to 2 years' time when you need to raise again, are you going to have grown to a reasonable level where you can kind of acquire a valuation that's higher than the last round? If you can't, probably wait a little bit to raise if possible. Because if investors see you raising a valuation up here and it's going down at each round, it's not as attractive to them because it shows something isn't quite going right in the business. You're perhaps not growing at the rate you said you would or you thought you would, or things haven't quite been thought out. There are obviously nuances to that. For example, COVID, I'm sure, could have ruined a lot of businesses, and the valuations would have gone down, but it's just something to think about. So, pitch deck faux pas. Number one, far too long. So as I mentioned before, no more than 12 slides in a pitch deck, ideally. You can have a business plan that has far more information down, and they can look at that down the line. Great, but pitch deck just needs to be something that's going to grab their attention initially, get them interested enough to then ask either for that business plan or to have a call with you. Two, let the market decide, be authoritative. So this is I guess a couple of things, but it links into the valuation as well. You you want to have a valuation of your business in your head. Don't share that. That will come on to that down later. Don't share that with the investor, but have something in your head that you want that's relevant to the market. So have a look at what's going on in the market. Look at businesses that are at a similar stage to you, how much they raised and what their valuation was. So you can kind of get a rough idea of what your valuation should be because it is very much an art, not a science. Your valuations are almost always determined by revenue multiples or what's going on in the market. Um, so yeah, be have something in your head. Don't tell the investor that. And then I guess separate to that, be authoritative just in general. Show that you are a leader, show that you are running the business, you know what's going on. Because if you come into the pitch with an investor and you're kind of not really sure what's going on, you're not very sure of yourself, it's not going to fill the investor with confidence. Make sure you know what you're talking about. You've practiced your pitch. Um, and even if you might not be confident, just try and act confident. It will come with time. Three, diversifying too early on. So this is kind of just a point to say focus on the one product that you have. You can diversify down the line, but you need to make sure you've got your product linked into point four as well with product market fit. You've got your product, you've found your product market fit, and you're starting to make some good sales, generating some good traction, good revenues, and then you can start to think about expanding. So again, let's take it back to the example of the protein bar. You've got your protein bar, you're selling it, you found who your customers are, your ICP. Uh, and you're starting to make some really good revenues, then you can start to think, I could start to make protein powders, or I could start to make supplements for something else within the same market. You want to make sure that you've really conquered that first product market first, before heading on to creating other products. Because, like it says, it's hard to build one startup, let alone three. Five, building out your team too early on. So again, as I mentioned earlier, you want to identify those skill gaps within the team, but you don't want to be bringing in people too early, because number one, you're probably going to have to give away some equity in the business to those people. And if you're too early on and they're not quite right for the business down the line, then it's a tricky conversation to have, uh, kind of removing them from the business. It's pretty simply just cost. It costs money to have people in the business. And if you're going from being the one of maybe your co-founders to key decision makers and you'll bring someone else in, again, additional cost, but then you've got someone else that's kind of making the decision, which is good if they're very much aligned with your strategy and your vision. But if they're not, could be an issue, down the line. Six, stating the valuation. So again, as I mentioned, don't if an investor asks what valuation you're thinking of, just say this is to be negotiated down the line. Just say it's negotiable. Don't even if they ask for a rough ballpark figure, just say just say it's similar to you're looking at the market rates and it's similar to that. Just never give a number. You never want to show your hand because investor will almost always use that against you. So never ever say what you're thinking of the valuation should be. Um, Believing in your financial model too much. Okay, so at this early stage, your forecasts are going to be, um, rough. They're going to be a guide. They're not going to be exact because there's no way you can know exactly how much you are going to make in revenue next year if you've only just started out the business. It's impossible. So don't rely on that too much. You can say to an investor, I think this is a rough guide of where I'm going to get to, but of course, with all forecasts at this early stage, it's very much a finger in the air. It's just a rough guide, it's an estimate. And my estimates are based off of XYZ. So again, looking at what other people in the market at similar levels you have done, looking at their kind of how they've grown, and you can say, this is where I've got my data from. This is why I think I'm going to do this. XYZ, whatever it is. And then as you start to kind of grow, you'll know how much your business is growing kind of month on month, year on year, and then predictions start to become a bit more realistic because you understand how much you are growing. Eight, the final point, no competition. If an investor sees that you say or see in your deck that you say you have no competition, there's no one else doing this, that's an immediate red flag. There will almost always be someone else trying to solve this problem. And again, it comes back to the credibility point. Have you done your research? Have you done your homework on the market, the competition? In your pitch deck, make sure there is definitely some competitors, even if it's loosely, they're kind of doing a similar thing, but or maybe they're solving the same problem, but just in a very different way. Just make sure you put them in. And again, like I said, make sure you say why you are better, why you are different. So setting up for success. Pick your investor wisely. So there's a stat that I heard it when I first started this role. It was most investments last longer than UK marriages. So I can't remember the exact years of the UK, how long you and the average UK marriage lasts. But the amount of time you're going to be working with the investor will be longer than the average UK marriage. So make sure you are doing your due diligence on the investor. Make sure this is someone you want to work with for the next 3, 5, 10 years of your life. Because if it's not, it's going to be miserable for you. And just like we do our due diligence, make sure you do it. I can't state that enough because it's going to be very tricky to get them off the cap table once they're in. So just like every startup has a unique view of how to make money, so does every fund and every individual within that fund. So just because one person within a company has said no, it doesn't mean that every other person will within that company. Different people within the company have different specialties. So reach out to a few different people from, say it is Mercia, reach out to me, reach out to a couple of others as well. Make sure you're getting a broad range of people that you're speaking to because what interests one person won't always interest the other. And what we try to do is if it is something where someone is an expert, we will kind of hand it off to them, say, have you seen this? Give us some insights. But not all companies will do that. So make sure you're kind of reaching out to a few different people within that fund. Um, the next points aren't kind of massively important, but it's just kind of things that investors are thinking about as well. So I think something you're thinking about is what markets can you go after? When do you want an investor to kind of join the journey of the business? Have a think about that. When is it you want them to come and really bring their expertise? And we'll be thinking about that as well. If we invest at the seed Series A stage, so if you're pre-seed, probably not quite the right stage for us. But do your research on the investors as well, because you don't want to be wasting your time. If you're a consumer brand and this investment company doesn't invest in consumer companies, you're wasting your time filling out their forms and reaching out to them. So do a little bit of research first to understand whether it is actually worth you reaching out to the company. And then the investors always going to be thinking about how to de-risk the opportunity. So that's kind of just giving you insight into the investor's mind. How can we de-risk the opportunity through X, Y, Z? Is it you've got a really strong brand on social media? Like I said, is it you've got patents? Are there other investors around the table that kind of help us de-risk the opportunity? Because then there's more money, more people to kind of bring their expertise and invest in the next rounds. And then finally, it's just a point to say that we review loads of decks, and we only pick a handful to invest in. So I think I'd say for every 100 I would review, maybe 10 I'd take a call with, and then five maybe even less, 3 to 5 I would then take to the team to discuss. So it shows it's a really small percentage of companies that even get to the stage of a thought of investment. Um, so you've really got to try and make yourself stand out wherever you can, and build those relationships with the investor. A warm introduction is always better than a cold introduction. So even if at first, when you're reaching out to the investor, it's going to be cold initially, but the fundraising process takes a while. So I heard it was explained to me in a good way the other day. It's almost like connecting the dots. So you have the first start of the first meeting, and then as time goes on, you reach out to them, say every month, every couple months. So then it becomes a line. So then 6 months down the line, a year down the line, when you're looking to actually raise the investment, you've got those touch points with the investor. They already know who you are. And if they're interested, they can move quickly into getting that investment. So make sure you're keeping the investor updated with your milestones. Um, so then when it comes to the time to invest, they're there and ready. Measure, measure, and measure. So this is, I guess, just saying you can't improve what you don't measure. So make sure everything you're doing, whether it's different types of marketing, whatever it is, measure how much that cost, how beneficial that was to the business, and you know what works, what doesn't work. Start 3 months before you need to fundraise. So ideally, you will have touch points with investors before that 3 month point, but fundraising can take a while. Um, so definitely start as early as possible with that fundraise because it's going to take a long time to get the investor. As the next point says, the rule of thumb is 40 to 60 investor conversations to get to a term sheet. So there's going to be an awful lot of no's before you get to a yes. So that kind of shows that perseverance is super important. Um, because you are going to get told no an awful lot. That's just kind of the nature of raising money. Um, but yeah, just unfortunately, there's not a lot else I can say other than just keep going, keep trying lots of different investors. There are so many different investors out there. One will be a good fit for you. How quickly you get into the next process, slash how much time are investors investing in you. So again, that's just about asking the timeline. What is the timeline of the investor? How quickly can they invest? And a lot of the time, if an investor really wants to invest in the company, it's a competitive process, they're going to work as quickly as possible on the deal. So you can gauge how interested they are by how quickly they're able to work. Things do happen, of course, like sometimes emails slip, and maybe they're ill, whatever it is, they might be slightly slow to respond. But when they get to that stage of they've had the call, you've come and speak to the team and they want to invest, they're going to work as quickly as possible through that process. Focus on building momentum. So typically, how it would work is a lot of the time companies will get investment from angels first before coming to VCs. So if try and find those angels, it can be difficult to find angels, but reach out to VCs and say what angel groups are around, or just simply go on Google angel groups near wherever you are. And just try and get chatting to them. They'll have portals as well that you can kind of um, click into, fill out some forms to get investment from them, and they run kind of pitching events and sessions for smaller ticket sizes. Like I said, our check sizes start at 500K, but theirs will start a lot smaller than that. But angels can be helpful as well. A lot of the time, angels will be super specialist. They'll have run a business in a certain sector before. So they'll be super specialist, and perhaps that'll be in your sector, which can be very helpful. Whereas they do have a network, but VCs bring a really strong network. I know Mercia's been around for nearly 20 years, and within that, we've built a super strong network that we leverage as much as possible for our investments. So if you do need a CFO, chair, whatever it is, we'll kind of dip into our portfolio of people almost. We've got a team dedicated to building that portfolio of people. There's thousands within that pot. Um, that we can dip into and bring to your attention to help you make new hires and kind of just to help you solve problems. And then finally, always be in fundraising mode. Um, so yeah, you never know who you're speaking to. Whatever events it is, just always be on the lookout for investors. Just having a chat, try and sell your business as much as possible. Because when it comes to that next round, if you've made that connection and you've kind of, like I said, joined those dots, kept in touch with them, they're right there within your database for you to reach out to. And that's it. Thank you very much. I know there weren't many questions there and then, but happy to take any questions now. Um, yeah, I think we've got a little bit of time, so happy to take any questions. Oh, okay, I can see in the chat there's what is a term sheet, please? So a term sheet, this is kind of a non-binding agreement, often a non-binding agreement for the investor. That just lays out the initial terms of sort of how much you're going to be investing, um, what the valuation is going to look like. At this point, you will have kind of shown your hand and you've got to an agreement of the valuation, kind of like laws you're going to use, that sort of thing. So it's just the very basic initial terms of the deal. Like I say, valuation, how much you're going to be investing, that you kind of sign, and there'll be exclusivity parts to that as well. Yeah, that basically you'll sign before an investment happens just to say that, look, we've made this agreement, we're going to work our way to get into the investment. So from what amount do angels typically invest from? They can invest anywhere from 5K um, all the way up to, I think I've seen checks of 200, 300K. So it could be in hundreds of thousands all the way from 5K. So it really does vary. But yeah, can go all the way down to the single digit thousands usually. Bottom up process again. Yes, sure. Um, if I know we don't really have a lot of time, we've got 5 minutes, so I'll go over this just very quickly. And if you don't understand it, ChatGPT or the internet will have a very probably much more simplified way of explaining it than I can. But essentially, so if we go back to the gym goer approach, say you've got a protein bar, and you're selling it for £1. This is kind of obviously small examples. You would then look up how many gyms are in the UK, for example. So say that that's very simply 100 gyms in the UK. There's obviously way more than that. How many people go to a gym on average in each gym? Let's say that's 10 people. So then you do the 100 gyms times the 10 people, which gets you to 1,000. And then you can multiply that by how much your protein bar costs. So let's say, I can't remember if I said £1 or £2. Let's say it was £2. £2 times 1,000, £2,000. That's your market size kind of um, for your product. But yeah, that's a very quick overview. Happy to if yeah, realize we're running out of time, but I can give a written explanation to Tara if that's helpful to then send out via email, or like I said, ChatGPT will have that answer very simply put for you. But like I said as well, with the market size, don't dwell on it too much. Um, it all you need to show is that you've done some research in that sense, and the market is big enough to give sizable returns. So if your market size is 1 million and the investors fund is 80 odd million, market size isn't big enough for an investor. If your market size is coming to 5 billion, then it probably is looking big enough for an investor to want to invest in. Ideally, an investor's going to want to be looking at companies that have a market size in the billions. That's the aim, because then you know for sure it's definitely big enough to kind of give those sizable returns that an investor wants. Um, but again, be realistic with it. It's always a balance. Be realistic, but you do want the market size to be sizable.
Jake, sorry, just quickly, are there instances where you'd sort of want your investor to invest and then just say, see you later, like I want to run it from here, like get their money, make them a bit of money, and then say, right, we're done, I'm going to carry on the business without the investment? Is that a typical scenario or not really?
Yeah, so it depends on the investor. Some investors will kind of give you the money and leave you alone if that's what you want. Lots of other investors want to be involved. They want to know what's going on. So I guess it varies. Most of the time, in my experience, investors want to be involved. They want to be coming in, having a chat with you every now and then, coming to your board meetings. But there are some investors that will just say, here's the money, off you go. And I think that's something for you to do in due diligence. Have those conversations with the investor, get that out super early. You can say, I kind of just want the money here and I want to run the business. Happy to have a conversation every now and then, but don't really want you involved too much. Just make sure that's clear pretty quickly as not to waste your time as much as it is their time.
Super, thank you.
Problem. Great. I realise we are running out of time here. 1 minute left. There is one more question, feel free. If not, then Tara, I'm happy to hand back over to you.
Real, thank you so much. That was fab, Jake. Thank you, and I will circulate the recordings for everyone as well. So yeah, thank you for joining us, guys. Hope that was super helpful. Any other questions? You will have got the email address for Fifth Form Saint Club in the reminder. Just drop us an email. Like always. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you.